I almost signed without understanding German, but the cleaner's daughter changed everything. Thomas Baker trembled as he held the golden pen, his eyes fixed on the documents spread across the mahogany table. Grandma Rose Bakery, his family's three-generation legacy, was just one signature away from being saved from the bankruptcy looming like an inevitable storm. Dr. Klaus Schmidt, the gray-haired German lawyer in his impeccable suit, adjusted his glasses and pushed the papers closer to the 26-year-old. My dear Thomas, this is just standard procedure. A business loan with exceptional terms, considering your delicate situation. We must finalize today. My investor client returns to Germany early tomorrow. Dr. Schmidt's voice echoed through the luxurious office on the 12th floor of New York City's most modern commercial building. Thomas took a deep breath, thinking of his father who had passed just 6 months prior, leaving behind a mountain of debt and the responsibility of keeping the family dream alive. Sir, I trust you. My father always said you were a man of your word. If you say this contract will save our bakery, then... Exactly. Your father, God rest his soul, was my client for 15 years. I would never do anything to harm your family. Now, please sign here, here, and here. Dr. Schmidt pointed to specific lines in the documents, written in English and German. Thomas noticed the German portion was significantly longer, but the lawyer had explained it was just legal formalities required by the foreign investor. Just as the pen hovered inches above the paper, a woman's voice shouted from the hallway, "Don't sign that!" The office door swung open abruptly, and a young black woman, about 22, burst into the room. Her curly hair was pulled into a hasty ponytail, and she wore a military green blouse over faded jeans. In her hands, she carried a patched-up school backpack and a worn notebook. Dr. Schmidt stood immediately, his face red with anger. "How dare you barge in here uninvited? Security! Call security now!" "Don't sign those papers," the young woman repeated, completely ignoring the lawyer's threats. "There's something very wrong with this contract." Thomas looked confused between the furious lawyer and the stranger who had just stormed in. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "My name is Jasmine. My mother Denise works as a cleaner in this building. She's been cleaning these offices every night for 8 years, and I studied law using books I found abandoned in the rooms." Dr. Schmidt laughed scornfully. "Studied? A cleaner's daughter giving legal advice? That's absurd. Get out now, or I'll call the police." Jasmine didn't back down. She stepped closer to the table and pointed at the documents. "Laugh all you want, but I know exactly what's written in these papers, and it's not a loan, Thomas. It's a disguised property transfer." "That's a lie!" Dr. Schmidt slammed his fist on the table. "An unqualified girl meddling in serious business." "Unqualified?" Jasmine opened her backpack and pulled out a university statement. "I'm in my 8th semester at Georgetown University Law School, full scholarship for academic merit." Thomas took the document and examined it. It was real. The young woman really was studying law, and her grades were exceptional. "How did you get a scholarship like that?" "By studying 12 hours a day after my mother came home from work. She told me about the law books she saw in offices, and I asked her to bring me the ones being thrown away. That's how I found my passion for law." Dr. Schmidt tried to regain control. "Even if she has some basic knowledge, she has no real experience." "Thomas, don't let yourself be influenced by..." "Ich verstehe perfekt Deutsch, Herr Schmidt," Jasmine interrupted, speaking fluent German. "Und ich weiß genau, was in diesem Vertrag steht." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Dr. Schmidt completely lost the color in his face, while Thomas looked at Jasmine in disbelief. You speak German?" "My mother was born in Germantown, the daughter of German immigrants. I grew up hearing German at home. When she started working here and saw documents in this language, she'd ask for my help understanding certain words. That's how I began to suspect something was wrong." Dr. Schmidt tried one last move. "Even if you understand some scattered words, legal contracts require specific technical knowledge. Herr Schmidt, dieser Vertrag ist kein Darlehen. Es ist ein getarnter Eigentumsübertragungsvertrag." Jasmine spoke slowly in German, then translated for Thomas. This contract isn't a loan, it's a disguised property transfer. Thomas stood up abruptly. What do you mean, property transfer? Jasmine took the documents and began translating the clauses in German. Here it says that in case of any payment delay, even by 1 day, the property automatically transfers to the creditor. And here on page 3, it specifies the interest is 12% per month, not per year as written in the English part. That's impossible. Thomas snatched the papers from Jasmine's hands and examined the clauses. Dr. Schmidt, explain this. The lawyer had already lost his confident demeanor. He adjusted his tie nervously. These are just translation differences, technical matters that... Lies? Jasmine opened her worn notebook and showed pages filled with notes. For months I've been studying the contracts that pass through this office. My mother photographed suspicious documents with my phone while cleaning. I found out you used this same tactic with small business owners all over the neighborhood. Thomas felt the ground give way beneath him. What other business owners? Mr. Roberts' bakery, which closed last month, Mrs. Smith's grocery store, Dr. Johnson's pharmacy. They all signed similar contracts thinking they were loans to save their businesses. 3 months later, they lost everything. Dr. Schmidt stood up abruptly. These are baseless accusations. You can't prove... Yes, I can. Jasmine pulled a flash drive from her bag. Digital copies of all the contracts, photos of the original documents, and a list of addresses of the properties you've acquired in the last 2 years. The tension in the room was palpable. Thomas paced back and forth, trying to process everything. Why would you do this to me? My father trusted you. Dr. Schmidt sighed deeply and sat down. For a moment he seemed to age 10 years. Your father was truly my friend. But business, Thomas. Business is different from friendship. What business? The land where your bakery stands is worth a fortune. It's the last undeveloped lot in the fastest growing area of New York City. My German client wants to build a commercial complex there. Jasmine crossed her arms. And how many families have lost their livelihoods for this commercial complex? It's not personal, it's just business. Thomas felt a rage building inside him like never before. Just business? My grandfather built that bakery with his own hands in 1967. My father dedicated his whole life to it. And you want to destroy everything for money? Thomas, you need to understand. Your bakery really is failing. With or without my intervention, you'd lose everything in a few months. At least this way, you'd get something... Lies! Jasmine cut in again. According to the contract, they wouldn't receive anything. The debt would be transferred in full, and the family would still owe the difference. The office door opened again, and a woman around 50 hurried in. It was Denise, Jasmine's mother, wearing the navy blue uniform of the cleaning company. Jasmine, what are you doing here? Denise was visibly nervous. I'm sorry, Dr. Schmidt, my daughter shouldn't be here. Dr. Schmidt saw an opportunity. Denise, your daughter barged into my office and disrupted an important meeting. I'll have to let her go. Denise turned pale. No, please, I need this job. It's just the two of us. And with Jasmine's college... Mom, don't worry. He can't fire you for something I did. Yes, I can. And I'll do it right now. Thomas watched the scene, seeing the desperation in Denise's eyes and Jasmine's unshakable determination. A family fighting to survive, just like his. Dr. Schmidt, this isn't fair. She didn't do anything wrong. Thomas, either you sign this contract now, or both you and this family will leave here with nothing. Jasmine stepped closer to her mother and held her hands. Mum, you always taught me that doing the right thing is worth more than any job. I can't let him steal this family's bakery like he's done to so many others. But honey, how will we pay for your college? How will we eat? Thomas made a decision. Denise, if we can save my bakery, I promise I'll give you a job. And Jasmine, if you help me get out of this mess, I'll pay for your college until you graduate. Dr. Schmidt laughed sarcastically. With what money, Thomas? Your bakery is broke. I haven't signed anything yet. There's still time to find another solution. Jasmine looked at her mother, who nodded hesitantly, then turned to Thomas. We have a lot of work ahead. First, I need to analyze the bakery's real financial situation. Then we'll look for legal alternatives. Dr. Schmidt slammed the documents on the table. "You're making a terrible mistake. My client won't wait. If you don't sign today, the offer is off the table." "Then let it be," Thomas replied firmly. "I'd rather try to save my business honestly than lose everything to someone else's greed." The German lawyer gathered his papers with sharp movements. "You'll regret this. In 3 months, when the bakery closes for good, remember this conversation." After Dr. Schmidt stormed out, slamming the door, the three of them stood in silence for a moment. Denise was the first to speak. "Jasmine, are you sure about this?" "I am, Mom. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm using my education for something truly important." Thomas sank into one of the chairs. "So now what? Where do we start?" Jasmine opened her notebook. "First, I want to see all the bakery's financial documents. Bank statements, invoices, supplier contracts, everything. Then, we'll do a full assessment of assets and liabilities." "You learned all this in college?" "College and life, Thomas. When you grow up watching your mum count every penny just to buy food, you learn finances the hard way." Denise smiled proudly at her daughter. "She's always been like this. Since she was little, she organized our expenses, made spreadsheets in her notebook." "Mom, we can talk about that later. Right now we need to focus on the problem." The three of them left the office together. In the elevator, Thomas broke the silence. "Jasmine, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Why did you take such a risk to help me? You don't even know me." Jasmine glanced at her mother before answering. "Because I've seen too many families destroyed by people like Dr. Schmidt. And because—" She hesitated. "Because your bakery was part of my childhood." "How so?" "When we were poorer, my mom would sometimes walk past Grandma Rose's bakery on her way home from work, the smell of bread coming from the oven. She always said that one day she would buy a sweet roll for me. It took 2 years, but she managed it. It was the best sweet roll of my life." Thomas felt his eyes grow moist. "My grandfather insisted that the sweet rolls had the best price in the neighborhood. He said children deserve good things no matter their family's situation. So you understand why I couldn't let them destroy this." They left the building and walked through the busy streets of New York City. The bakery was a 20-minute walk away, in a simpler neighborhood where traditions still held strong against time. "There it is," Thomas pointed to a 2-story building with a faded yellow facade and an old sign. "Grandma Rose Bakery, since 1967. Jasmine studied the place carefully. Despite the peeling paint and some old equipment visible through the window, there was something comforting about it. "How many employees work here?" "Just me and Mr. James, who's been a baker for 20 years. My Aunt Susan sometimes helps at the counter, but I can't afford to pay her." They stepped inside. The scent of fresh bread flooded Jasmine's senses, bringing back childhood memories. Mr. James, a dark-skinned man around 60, was arranging loaves on the counter. "Thomas, how was the meeting? Did you get the loan?" "Mr. James, this is Jasmine. She helped us figure out it wasn't a loan. It was a scam." The baker stopped what he was doing. "A scam? What do you mean?" Thomas explained the whole situation, and Mr. James listened, shaking his head in disbelief. "I always suspected that German fellow. Too polished, to be honest." Jasmine began examining the place with a professional eye. "Thomas, show me the accounting books." They went up to the small office on the 2nd floor. Thomas opened an old cabinet and pulled out several disorganized folders. "Sorry for the mess. Ever since since he passed, I haven't been able to sort the paperwork properly." Jasmine spent the next 2 hours reviewing documents, taking notes and crunching numbers. Denise helped by organizing the papers by date. "Thomas, the situation is serious, but not hopeless." "What do you mean?" "You do have high debts, that's true, but you also have valuable assets. The baking equipment, even if old, is worth a good amount. The location is excellent, and most importantly, you have loyal customers." Thomas perked up a little. "So there's hope?" "There is, but it'll require major changes. First, we need to renegotiate debts with suppliers. Second, modernize some aspects of the business without losing its traditional essence. Third, develop new revenue streams." "What kind of new streams?" Jasmine pointed to the window. which overlooked a school across the street. For example, why not partner with the school to provide snacks or develop a line of homemade products to sell online? Mr. James, who had come up to listen, nodded. Grandma Rose's cheese puffs recipe is one of a kind. I've always said we should sell more of those. Exactly. Jasmine tapped her notes. You have family recipes that are real treasures. With the right strategy, they could become your competitive edge. Thomas paced the small office, processing the information. It sounds too good to be true. Why didn't the company accountant ever suggest this? Because he gets a fixed percentage every month. To him, it doesn't matter if you grow or go under. To me and to you, it makes all the difference. Denise, who had been quietly organizing papers, found something interesting. Jasmine, look at this. It was an old letter from 1998 between Thomas's father and the city council. What is it? It seems your father once tried to expand the bakery, but ran into permit issues. Look here. It says the lot next door was available for purchase, but he didn't have the capital at the time. Thomas picked up the mail. I vaguely remember this. Dad always said he missed a big opportunity. Jasmine studied the document carefully. Thomas, does this lot still exist? Yes, it's a small parking lot now. The owner rents out spots by the day. Let's take a look. They went downstairs and walked over to the adjacent lot. It was small, but well located, about 200 square meters. Do you know who the current owner is? I think it's Mr. Paul, who runs a repair shop 2 blocks from here. Should we talk to him? They walked to the auto shop. Mr. Paul, a man around 70 years old, was adjusting the engine of an old car. Thomas, how are you, son? I heard about the bakery's tough situation. Mr. Paul, this is Jasmine. We're trying to find ways to save the business. I wanted to ask about the lot next to the bakery, that parking lot. Son, it's more trouble than it's worth. People park and don't pay, others complain about the price. I've been thinking of selling it for a while. Jasmine perked up immediately. What would the price be? For Thomas, the son of my old friend William, I'd give a special deal. Around 60 grand in installments. Thomas sighed. Mr. Paul, you know I don't have that kind of money right now. What if we partnered up? Jasmine suggested. How so? You'd become a minority partner in the bakery's expansion. Instead of selling the lot, you invest it into the business and get a percentage of the profits. Mr. Paul scratched his head, thinking. Never thought of that, but it could be interesting. I've always liked the bakery, and I'm sure William would be happy seeing his son grow the business. Thomas looked at Jasmine, impressed. You just solved 2 problems at once. Not yet. We still need to crunch numbers, draw up contracts, see if it's really feasible. They returned to the bakery with new hope. Mr. James was waiting with fresh coffee and sweet bread. So any luck? Thomas told him about the possible partnership with Mr. Paul. That would be amazing. I've always dreamed of having more space to work. We could have a section just for sweets, another for savory items. Jasmine opened her notebook again. Let's take it slow. First, we need to settle the current debts. Then we can think about expansion. She spent the rest of the afternoon calling suppliers, negotiating deadlines and discounts. Denise helped by organizing documents and making coffee for everyone. By the end of the day, as the bakery was closing, Jasmine presented a detailed plan. I managed to renegotiate 70% of the debts. The suppliers agreed to extend deadlines by 6 months, as long as you keep up with orders from now on. Is that possible? If we implement the changes I suggested, yes. I calculated you could increase revenue by 40% in the next 3 months. Thomas was stunned. In 1 day, you've done more than I have in 6 months trying to fix this. It wasn't luck, Thomas. It was study and dedication. And most of all, it was seeing the situation from the outside. Denise smiled at her daughter. I always knew you'd go far, sweetheart. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The following Monday, Thomas, Jasmine, and Denise met early at the bakery to start implementing the changes. Mr. James was already at work, preparing the day's bread. First change, Jasmine announced. We're setting up our own delivery system. Delivery? But isn't that too modern for a traditional bakery? Thomas, tradition and modernity can coexist. Your grandparents made bread by hand, but if they'd had the chance to reach more customers, they'd have taken it. She showed a notebook filled with sketches and notes. I designed simple delivery uniforms, calculated optimized routes for the neighborhood, and created a special delivery menu with products that travel well. Mr. James approached, interested. And who will handle the deliveries? I thought of hiring 2 young people from the neighborhood, part-time each. They'd use bicycles, which is more economical and eco-friendly. Thomas was impressed by the level of detail. Did you come up with all this last night? I didn't sleep much, Jasmine admitted. But when I find a project that inspires me, I get like this. Denise laughed. I can confirm. When she commits to something, she gives it her all. That morning, they implemented a simple phone order system. Jasmine had created organized product cards with prices and preparation times. The first order came before 10. Grandma Rose Bakery, good morning. Hi, do you deliver? I need 2 sweetbreads and a simple cake for afternoon snacks. Thomas looked at Jasmine, who nodded. Yes, we do. What's the address? After jotting down the order, Thomas hung up excitedly. It worked. The first order. Easy, Jasmine laughed. It's just the beginning. Let's see how the week goes. By 2 in the afternoon, they had an unexpected visitor. Dr. Schmidt entered the bakery with another man, older, with completely white hair. Thomas, this is Mr. Kaufmann, my German client. He'd like to make a final offer. Thomas glanced at Jasmine, who was at the counter. Dr. Schmidt, I've already said I'm not interested in your offers. Mr. Kaufmann stepped forward and spoke in heavily accented English. Young man, I sense there's been a misunderstanding. I came personally to clarify the situation. There's no misunderstanding, Jasmine interjected. There's an attempt at fraud disguised as business. The German studied her with interest. Are you his lawyer? I'm a law student helping the Baker family restructure their business honestly. Ich verstehe. Sie sprechen Deutsch? Ja, ich spreche fließend Deutsch. Mr. Kaufmann seemed surprised and turned to Dr. Schmidt in German. Jasmine followed the entire conversation, quietly translating for Thomas. He's saying Dr. Schmidt never mentioned someone who understood German was involved in the negotiation. Now he's questioning whether the contracts were really as presented to him. Dr. Schmidt grew visibly nervous and tried to interrupt. Mr. Kaufmann, perhaps we should discuss this at the office. Nein. The German raised his hand. I want this settled here now. He turned to Jasmine and spoke in German. She replied fluently, and Thomas noticed Dr. Schmidt growing increasingly uncomfortable. What are they saying? He's explaining he thought he was making a legitimate investment in small American businesses. Apparently, Dr. Schmidt told him the owners willingly agreed to sell their properties for the urban development project. Mr. Kaufmann kept speaking, gesturing seriously. Now he's saying he never authorized misleading contracts or fraudulent practices, that his company in Germany has a 50-year reputation and can't be involved in dishonest dealings. Dr. Schmidt tried to regain control. Mr. Kaufmann, there are some cultural matters that... Schweigen Sie. The German cut him off sharply. You deceived me too. The argument between Dr. Schmidt and Mr. Kaufmann continued for minutes, with Jasmine translating key points for Thomas. He's cancelling all contracts and ending the partnership with Dr. Schmidt. Says he'll report the fraudulent practices to German and American authorities. Dr. Schmidt left the bakery visibly shaken, followed by Mr. Kaufmann, who turned to Thomas before leaving. I apologize for the trouble caused. I didn't know about the dishonest methods. Thank you for clarifying things, sir. I wish success for your business. It's important to preserve family traditions. After they left, Mr. James, who had watched everything from the counter, applauded. That girl is a guardian angel. Thomas was moved. Jasmine, I don't know how to thank you. You saved not just my bakery, but so many other families we don't even know. It's not over yet, Thomas. Now we need to focus on making the business truly thrive. Over the following weeks, the changes Jasmine implemented began to show results. The delivery system brought in new customers, and the partnership with Mr. Paul to expand the space was nearly finalized. Denise had been officially hired as the bakery's administrative manager. a role she carried out with pride and efficiency. "Mom, I've never seen you so happy at work," Jasmine remarked during lunch. "It's different when you feel like you're building something, not just cleaning up what others left behind." Thomas agreed. "Denise, you have an organizational vision I never had. The bakery has never run so well." A month after the first crisis, the bakery's revenue had increased by 50%. The expansion into the neighboring lot was being planned, and Jasmine had developed a detailed business plan. "Thomas, I want to show you something," she said, opening an elaborate portfolio. "What is this?" "A complete project for the new Grandma Rose Bakery, keeping all the tradition but with modern, efficient facilities." The blueprints showed an integrated space with an expanded production area, a customer service section, and a small cafe with tables for those who wanted to dine in. "This is amazing. When did you have time to do all this?" "Late at night after studying for my college exams, but it was a joy. I never thought I'd use my legal knowledge for something so human." Mr. James examined the drawings carefully. "Look at this. She even thought of a dedicated area for handmade sweets. I've always wanted a space like this. And here," Jasmine pointed to a section of the plan, "would be a small bakery museum with photos of the Baker family and the history of the business, to show that tradition has value." Thomas felt his eyes well up again. "My grandfather and father would be so proud." The grand reopening of the bakery happened 3 months later. The whole neighborhood came, including many of the small business owners who had been victims of Dr. Schmidt's scheme. Mr. Kaufmann also showed up, bringing a gift, a German bread-making machine, imported directly from his hometown. "To show that honest business builds bridges between cultures," he explained in improved English. Jasmine was radiant, seeing the result of so much hard work. She had graduated from law school with top honors and had already received several job offers from major firms. "So what now?" Thomas asked during the reopening celebration. "Are you going to accept any of those job offers?" "Actually, I have a different idea." "What is it?" "I want to open a law office specializing in small businesses, to help other families like yours protect themselves from scams and grow their ventures sustainably." Denise joined the conversation. "Sweetheart, I'm so proud of you. Mum, none of this would have been possible without your sacrifices. All those years watching you leave at dawn for work, coming home exhausted but still finding energy to help me with my studies." Thomas raised a toast. "To the Baker family and the Washington family, to tradition and innovation, to the courage to do what's right." Mr. James lifted his glass of soda. "And may Grandma Rose Bakery keep feeding families for 50 more years." 6 months later, Jasmine opened her law office on the same street as the bakery. Her first client was an 80-year-old woman who was being pressured to sell her house for well below market value. "Mrs. Wilson, you don't need to worry. We'll review this entire contract and make sure your rights are protected." The elderly woman smiled in relief. "My granddaughter told me you were the lawyer who saved Grandma Rose Bakery. If you manage that, I'm sure you can help me too." Thomas Baker visited Jasmine's office regularly, bringing fresh bread and discussing new projects for the bakery. "You know what amazes me most about this whole story?" he said during one of these visits. "What?" "How a situation that seemed hopeless turned into something so positive. If Dr. Schmidt hadn't tried to deceive us, maybe we'd never have discovered our true potential." Jasmine reflected on those words. "I think sometimes we need to face the toughest challenges to realize what we're truly capable of, and to discover who our real allies are." Denise walked into the office just then, carrying fresh coffee. "What are you talking about?" "About how life has strange ways of putting us on the right path," Jasmine replied. "True. Who would have thought cleaning offices at night would lead my daughter to become a lawyer and you to save your bakery?" Thomas smiled. "And who would have thought a neighborhood bakery could become a regional standout?" Indeed, Grandma Rose Bakery had become a success story. Local papers ran features about the business's revival, and business students visited to study its modern family-run model. Mr. James had been promoted to head of production and hired 2 assistants. At 62, he felt professionally fulfilled for the first time in his life. "Thomas, did you know several bakeries in town are copying our delivery system?" "Really? Really? And I'm not even upset." It means our idea was good enough to be copied. Jasmine, listening in, agreed. That's what happens when innovation meets tradition. You create something so solid it becomes a benchmark. A year after the whole story began, Dr. Schmidt unexpectedly showed up at the bakery. He looked noticeably thinner and worn. "Thomas, can I speak with you?" Thomas glanced at Jasmine, who was helping with the counter that day. "Of course, Dr. Schmidt, what brings you here?" "I wanted to apologize for everything." The silence that followed was heavy. Customers in the bakery sensed the tension and grew quiet. "I lost my law license. Mr. Kaufman actually reported my activities to the authorities. I'm under investigation for corporate fraud." Thomas didn't know how to respond. "Dr. Schmidt, I'm not asking forgiveness to escape the consequences. I'm asking because your father was truly my friend, and I betrayed him in the worst possible way." Jasmine stepped closer. "Dr. Schmidt, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you start doing this? You were a respected lawyer." He sighed deeply. "Greed, pure greed. It began with small favors for questionable clients. Then each scheme grew bigger than the last. By the time I realized it, I'd completely lost my moral compass." "And now?" Thomas asked. "Now I'm trying to make amends where I can. I've contacted all the families I harmed. Some accepted settlements, others prefer I face justice." Jasmine studied him carefully. "Dr. Schmidt, may I suggest something?" "What?" "Use your experience to warn other small business owners about these kinds of scams. Give free talks, write articles, help people protect themselves." You do that? After everything I've done?" "It's not for you. It's for the families who could be protected in the future." Thomas nodded. "Jasmine's right. If your experience can prevent others from going through what we went through, then something good will come out of this whole situation." Dr. Schmidt left the bakery visibly moved, promising to consider the suggestion. "You're amazing," Thomas said to Jasmine. "Even after everything he did, you still find a way to turn the situation into something positive. It's what my mother always taught me. Hate only breeds more hate. But transformation can bring hope." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 years had passed since that dramatic day in the office. Grandma Rose Bakery was no longer just a local business, but a symbol of resilience and renewal in the neighborhood. Jasmine had become one of the most respected lawyers in the area, specializing in defending small business owners against corporate fraud. Her firm had grown, and she now led a team of 5 young attorneys. Thomas had expanded the bakery once again, creating an artisanal baking school that attracted students from all over the city. Mr. James was the head instructor, passing down decades of knowledge to a new generation. Denise had become more than a manager. She was the living memory of the business's transformation, proudly sharing the story with visitors and new employees. One Saturday afternoon, the 4 of them gathered at the bakery, celebrating the 2nd anniversary of its reopening. "Sometimes I still can't believe everything that happened," Thomas said, watching the steady flow of customers. "I can," Denise replied. "I always knew my daughter was special. I just never imagined her skills could save so many people." Mr. James brought out a special cake he had prepared for the occasion. "This cake has Grandma Rose's original recipe, but with some innovations I've learned over these 2 years. It's the perfect mix of tradition and modernity." Jasmine cut the first slice. "You know what makes me proudest in all of this?" "What?" Thomas asked. "That we proved doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is always worth it in the end. And that family can be made of people who come together for a common purpose," Denise added, looking affectionately at Thomas and Mr. James. "And that tradition doesn't mean resisting change, but keeping the values that matter alive while embracing new possibilities," Thomas concluded. Mr. James raised his glass of orange juice. "To the future of Grandma Rose Bakery, and to the family we've chosen to build that future with." Just then a young man walked into the bakery. He was about 16, visibly nervous. and carried some crumpled papers. "Excuse me, do you know Ms. Jasmine Washington? They said she handles cases for small businesses." Jasmine stepped forward. "That's me. How can I help?" "My family has had a small diner for 15 years. A lawyer showed up offering a loan to help us renovate, but my grandmother was suspicious of the papers. She said something didn't feel right." Thomas, Denise, and Mr. James exchanged knowing glances. "What kind of suspicion did your grandmother have?" Jasmine asked, already guessing the answer. "She said the papers had a lot written in English, and the lawyer got nervous when she asked if she could take them home to review." Jasmine smiled, but it was a determined smile, not a joyful one. "What's your grandmother's name?" "Mrs. Davis. Everyone in the neighborhood knows her. She makes the best cheese pastries around." "And this lawyer, does he happen to have an office in a commercial building downtown?" "Yes. How did you know?" Thomas stepped closer. "Because we've been through this before, and if your grandmother is suspicious, there's definitely something wrong. Can you help us?" Jasmine looked at her friends, who nodded encouragingly. "Of course we can. Tomorrow I'll go to your grandmother's diner to review those documents. And don't worry about fees. Cases like this I handle for free." "Really? Why?" "Because someone once taught me that doing the right thing is its own reward." The young man left the bakery visibly relieved. Thomas hugged Jasmine. "Here we go again. And I couldn't be happier. Every family we manage to protect is a victory against injustice." Denise smiled at her daughter. "And to think it all started with you cleaning offices and studying with borrowed books." "No, Mom. It all started with you teaching me that education was the only inheritance no one could take from us." Mr. James, ever practical, was already wrapping some bread. "Take this to Mrs. Davis. Fresh bread always helps with difficult conversations." "Mr. James, you're a wise man." "No, dear. I'm just an old baker who learned that caring for people is the most important thing in life." As the sun set over New York City, Grandma Rose Bakery remained busy. Customers came and went, taking not just bread and sweets, but also a piece of the story of resilience and hope that place represented. Jasmine organized her documents and got ready to leave. "Thomas, tomorrow after we resolve Mrs. Davis's situation, can I stop by? I want to discuss an idea with you all." "Of course. What kind of idea?" "I was thinking of creating some kind of protection network for small businesses in the area, a group that helps each other and shares information about fraudulent practices." "That would be amazing," Denise perked up. "Imagine how many families we could protect." "Exactly. And the bakery could be the meeting hub, a place where small business owners feel safe to talk and share experiences." Thomas liked the idea. Grandma Rose was always the neighborhood gathering spot. Making this official would be a beautiful way to honor my grandfather and father's memory. Mr. James waved from the kitchen. "And I'll make coffee and sweet bread for every meeting." Everyone laughed. It was impossible not to feel optimistic about the future when surrounded by people who genuinely cared for one another. "You know what moves me the most about all this?" Jasmine said, pausing at the bakery door. "What?" "That we turned our near defeat into a force that protects others. It's as if that terrible day in Dr. Schmidt's office was necessary to put us on the right path." "Fate?" Thomas asked. "No, choices. Every day we choose to be better than we were yesterday, and when we make those choices with people we love, we can move mountains." Denise hugged her daughter. "Let's go home, sweetheart. Tomorrow there's another family to save." "Are you coming with us?" "Of course," Thomas answered immediately. "We're a team now." "Forever," Mr. James added, turning off the kitchen equipment. They left the bakery together under New York City's starry sky. Behind them, the sign Grandma Rose Bakery, since 1967, glowed softly under the streetlights. The next day, Jasmine, Thomas, Denise, and Mr. James headed to Mrs. Davis's diner. It was a small but clean and welcoming place, located near a public school. Mrs. Davis, a woman around 70 with white hair tied in a bun and a colorful apron, greeted them with initial suspicion. "You're really from Grandma Rose Bakery?" "Yes, Mrs. Davis. Your grandson Kevin came to us yesterday," Jasmine explained. "Oh, so you're the people who saved the bakery from that scam. Kevin told me the whole story." Thomas introduced himself. I'm Thomas Baker, the bakery owner. This is Jasmine, our lawyer, Denise, our manager, and Mr. James, our head of production. What a lovely group. Please sit down, I'll make some coffee. While Mrs. Davis prepared the coffee, Jasmine examined the documents she had received from the lawyer. Mrs. Davis, you were right to be suspicious. This contract is practically identical to the one they tried to push on us. I knew it. 60 years of cooking have taught me to recognize when something isn't quite right. Mr. James laughed. Experience is worth more than any diploma, Mrs. Davis. Exactly. My late husband always said, Rose, when something seems too good to be true, it usually isn't. Denise nodded. My mother used to say the same thing. Wisdom from those who've lived long and learned to be wary of suspicious shortcuts. Mrs. Davis served the coffee with fresh pastries. Try these. They're my specialty, cheese pastries with a pinch of fresh oregano. Thomas took a bite and his eyes lit up. Mrs. Davis, these are incredible. What's the secret? Thin dough, oil at just the right temperature, and most importantly, made with love. It's my great-grandmother's recipe. She came from Italy. Jasmine, who had been reviewing the documents, interrupted the culinary talk. Mrs. Davis, I need to ask, did this lawyer mention anything about other businesses in the area that have already accepted similar offers? He did. He said Mr. Roberts' bakery and Mrs. Smith's grocery store had already signed and were very satisfied. Thomas and Jasmine exchanged worried glances. Mrs. Davis, those businesses closed months ago. The family's lost everything. She turned pale. Oh my God, so it really was a scam. It was. And from what I see in these documents, it's the same scheme they tried on us, only now with even worse clauses. Kevin, Mrs. Davis's grandson, who had just come home from school, joined the conversation. Grandma, so we're not signing anything? Of course not, sweetheart. But now I need to know, how are we going to get the money for the repairs the diner needs? Jasmine closed the documents. We'll find legitimate alternatives. There are specific credit lines for small businesses, government support programs for entrepreneurs, and most importantly, we can develop strategies to increase your revenue. How do we do that? Thomas got excited. Mrs. Davis, your pastries are extraordinary. Have you ever thought about supplying them to other diners or offering deliveries? I never considered that. I've always just sold them here at the counter. Mr. James chimed in. With your location near the school, you could develop a special menu for school snacks, smaller pastries, natural juices, healthier options. And implement a simple delivery system like we did at the bakery, Denise suggested. Kevin perked up. Grandma, I could help with deliveries. I have a bike and know the whole neighborhood. Mrs. Davis smiled, seeing her grandson's enthusiasm. These ideas sound much better than signing shady papers. Jasmine opened her notebook. Let's make a detailed plan. First, we'll review your current finances. Then we'll outline the necessary improvements. Finally, we'll look for legitimate funding options. They spent the whole afternoon at the diner, working on strategies and calculating possibilities. Mrs. Davis grew more and more excited. You know what impresses me most about you all? What, Mrs. Davis? You didn't just come here to save me from a scam. You came to help me grow for real. That's what community means, Thomas replied. Looking out for each other not just in times of crisis, but in times of growth too. As they were saying goodbye that evening, Mrs. Davis took Jasmine's hands. Sweetheart, how old are you? 24, Mrs. Davis. At 24, how many families have you already saved? Jasmine blushed. It's not about saving anyone, Mrs. Davis. It's a matter of doing what's right. That's exactly why you save people. Because you don't do it to be a hero, you do it because you believe it's right. Denise smiled proudly at her daughter. This girl has always been like this. Since she was little, if she saw an injustice, she couldn't stay quiet. And thank goodness for that, Mrs. Davis said. The world needs people like that. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Davis's diner had implemented a delivery system and developed a school lunch menu. Kevin made the deliveries with pride, wearing a t-shirt with the diner's logo that Jasmine had designed. Business had grown significantly, and Mrs. Davis was already planning to hire an assistant. Jasmine, Can you believe we tripled our sales in just 2 weeks? I absolutely can. You had an excellent product, you just needed the right strategies to reach more customers. And to think if I'd signed those papers, I would have lost all this. Thomas, who had stopped by the diner to see the results, nodded. It's amazing how small changes can bring big results when they're done the right way. Mr. James, who was trying a meat pastry, praised, "Mrs. Davis, you should teach this recipe at the bakery's baking school." Baking school? Yes, Thomas said excitedly. We're creating a program of courses for small business owners in the area. Each one teaches their specialty. What a wonderful idea. Of course I'll participate. Jasmine jotted it down in her notebook. I'll add this to the Small Business Protection Network project. Besides protecting ourselves from scams, we can learn from each other. Kevin joined the conversation. Ms. Jasmine, can I ask you something? Of course, Kevin. Did you always want to be a lawyer? Jasmine thought about the question. You know, Kevin, for a long time I didn't even know I could be a lawyer. I grew up thinking people like me didn't have access to certain professions. What changed? My mother. She always said education was the one thing no one could take from me, and when I started studying law with the books I found, I realized I could use that knowledge to help people. And now I know I chose the right profession, not because of the money, but because I can make a difference in people's lives. Mrs. Davis was moved. Kevin, pay attention to what this young lady is saying. True success is when your work improves other people's lives. Denise, listening proudly, added, and when you find people who share the same values. Alone, we're strong. Together, we're unstoppable. 3 months later, the Small Business Protection Network was officially formed. 15 local businesses attended the monthly meetings at Grandma Rose Bakery. Jasmine had created a practical manual listing common scams, targeting small business owners and ways to protect against them. The manual was distributed free to all participants. Everyone, before we begin today's meeting, I'd like to introduce our newest member, Dr. Klaus Schmidt. A murmur of surprise spread through the group. Dr. Schmidt, noticeably thinner and more humble than before, stood up. I know many of you know me for the wrong reasons. I'm here today because Ms. Jasmine gave me a chance to make up for some of the harm I caused. Thomas also stood. Dr. Schmidt is working with us by identifying and explaining the tactics he once used. Knowledge that can protect many families in the future. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Dr. Schmidt continued. I know that would be impossible for many of you. I'm just trying to turn my mistakes into something useful. Mrs. Davis, who had become a natural leader in the group, spoke. Dr. Schmidt, everyone deserves a second chance. If your intention is truly to help, you'll be welcome. The meeting continued with Dr. Schmidt explaining in detail how the fraudulent contracts worked, which words and clauses should raise suspicion, and how the scammers chose their victims. They always target businesses in financial trouble but with valuable assets, he explained. The strategy is to offer an apparently easy solution in a moment of desperation. One of the participants raised their hand. Dr. Schmidt, how can we be sure a proposal is legitimate? First rule, never sign anything under pressure. Legitimate proposals always allow you to take documents home and consult other professionals. Second rule, Jasmine added, be wary of contracts with sections in foreign languages unless you understand perfectly what's written. Third rule, Thomas continued, if something seems too good to be true, it probably isn't. Mr. James, who was serving coffee to everyone, chimed in. And fourth rule, talk to other business owners. Shared experience is the best protection. At the end of the meeting, Dr. Schmidt approached Jasmine. Ms. Jasmine, may I speak with you privately? Of course. They stepped away from the group. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity you've given me. These meetings have been therapeutic. Dr. Schmidt, we all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. There's something else I'd like to do to make amends. What would that be? I've saved up some money. It's not much, but I'd like to create an emergency fund for small businesses in the area. For cases where someone needs quick financial help and has nowhere else to turn. Jasmine was surprised. That would be incredible. But why do this? Because I've found that the only way to deal with guilt is by turning it into positive action. Thomas, who had overheard part of the conversation, walked over. "Dr. Schmidt, that's an excellent idea. We could manage this fund through the Small Business Association." "You'd do that? Even after everything?" "Dr. Schmidt, the past doesn't change, but the future can still be written differently." 6 months later, the emergency fund had already helped 5 families in critical situations. Dr. Schmidt actively participated in deciding who should receive support, always guided by Jasmine and Thomas. Grandma Rose Bakery had become a true community hub. Beyond the monthly meetings, it hosted training courses, financial education talks, and a support group for small business owners. Jasmine, now 25, had received an offer to work as a consultant for the state government in a program protecting small entrepreneurs. "It's an incredible opportunity," she told Thomas during one of their routine conversations at the bakery. "But it would mean leaving private practice." "And do you want to accept?" "Part of me does. I could help many more families on a larger scale." "And the other part?" "The other part is afraid of losing direct contact with people. Here I see the results of our work every day. In government it would be more distant." Thomas reflected on Jasmine's words. "You know what my grandfather always said?" "What?" "That the difference between a job and a mission is that in a job you get paid to do something. In a mission you'd do it even if no one paid you." "Your mission is clear: to protect families from injustice. It doesn't matter if you do it from a small office or a government position." Jasmine smiled. "You're right. I'll accept the offer, but with one condition." "What's that?" "I want to keep my office here in the neighborhood for direct consultations, and I want our support network to keep running independently of the government program." "That means you'll be working twice as hard." "It means I'll work the way I believe is right." Denise, who was listening from the kitchen, shouted, "Honey, you've always been like this, never taking the easy way out." "Because the easy way isn't always the right way, Mom." Mr. James brought a freshly baked cake. "To celebrate our lawyer's new chapter." "I haven't officially accepted yet." "But you will," Thomas said confidently. "And when you do, we'll be here to support you." "Like a real family," Denise added. That night, Jasmine stayed alone in her office, drafting her response to the government's offer. Through the window, she could see Grandma Rose Bakery still lit up, with Thomas and Mr. James preparing the next day's bread. 3 years had passed since that dramatic day when she stormed into Dr. Schmidt's office. 3 years that had changed not only her life, but the lives of dozens of families. She finished writing the letter, accepting the government's proposal, but clearly stating her conditions to keep her local work. The next day, she delivered the letter personally to the government palace. The secretary who received it was impressed by her demands. "Ms. Jasmine, it's unusual for someone to accept a government position with so many conditions." "Secretary, it's unusual for someone to offer a position to someone who makes so many demands. But I believe we both know this work will only succeed if it's done with authenticity." "You're right. Your conditions are accepted. When can you start?" "On Monday, but I still have 3 cases to handle at my neighborhood office today." She returned home feeling fulfilled. She had found a way to expand her impact without abandoning her roots. Denise was waiting for her with dinner ready. "So, honey, they accepted all my conditions, Mom?" "Of course they did. When someone knows exactly what they want and why, it's hard to say no." Over dinner, mother and daughter talked about the next steps. "Jasmine, aren't you afraid of taking on too much?" "I am, Mom, but I'm more afraid of wasting the chance to make a difference." "What if it's too hard to balance everything?" "Then I'll ask for help. I've learned I don't have to do everything alone." Denise smiled. "That was the most important lesson. It took time, but you learned it." "I learned it from you, seeing how you always balanced work, home, my studies. You're my greatest inspiration, Mum." On Sunday, the day before starting her new role, Jasmine organized a special meeting at the bakery with all the members of their support network. "Everyone, I have some news to share." Thomas introduced her formally. "Our dear Ms. Jasmine has accepted an invitation to work with the state government. But, and this is the best part, she'll still be here with us too." Mrs. Davis clapped. "This girl never stops, but I'm so glad you won't leave us." "I'd never abandon you," Jasmine said emotionally. "You're my chosen family." Dr. Schmidt, who was present, raised his hand. "Ms. Jasmine, I'd like to say something." "Of course, Dr. Schmidt. 3 years ago, when you stormed into my office, I thought you were just a reckless young woman interfering with my business. Today, I know you were a guardian angel, not just for Thomas, but for me too." "Dr. Schmidt, let me finish. You gave me the chance to right my wrongs and discover what success truly means. That's why I want to make an announcement." He stood solemnly. "I've decided to donate my entire office and equipment to Ms. Jasmine to expand her work protecting small businesses." The silence that followed was broken by emotional applause. "Dr. Schmidt, this is—" "I can't accept it." "Yes, you can. It's my way of turning a place that was used for harm into one that will be used for good." Thomas was moved. "Dr. Schmidt, this honors my father's memory. And it honors the future of many families who will be protected," Mr. James added. Denise wiped her eyes. "It's so beautiful to see people changing for the better." Jasmine hugged Dr. Schmidt. "I accept your donation, but on one condition." "What is it?" "That you continue working with us as a volunteer consultant. Your experience is too valuable to waste. It would be an honor." The meeting ended with everyone making plans for the future. The expanded office would allow them to handle more cases, train new volunteer lawyers, and create a comprehensive database on fraudulent practices. On Monday, Jasmine began her first day in the state government. Her office was spacious and modern, overlooking downtown New York City. Her first official case was a complaint about a scam targeting small business owners across several towns. "Ms. Jasmine, this case is complex. It involves an organized network that has already harmed over 200 families." Jasmine carefully examined the documents. "I recognize this pattern. It's a larger version of the scheme we faced here in New York City." "You were already familiar with this type of scam?" "Intimately, and I also know the right people to help us fight it." She immediately called Thomas. "Thomas, I need your help and our entire network. We have a big case on our hands. We're at your service. What do you need?" "I want you to analyze these documents and identify the affected families who might testify. Most importantly, I want Dr. Schmidt to review the contracts to pinpoint the fraud patterns." "Consider it done. When do we start?" "Today. I'll email everything over." She hung up the phone and smiled at her assistant. Now they'll see what it really means to work as a team. End of story. And now, dear listeners, what an incredible journey we've shared with Thomas, Jasmine, Denise, and Mr. James. A story that began with a near scam and turned into a protection network that changed so many families' lives. Tell us, which part of the story moved you the most? Do you think Jasmine made the right decisions by accepting the government position while keeping her local work? Share your thoughts in the comments with honest words. And if you know any similar stories of resilience and solidarity, we'd love to hear them. Thank you so much for joining us on this exciting journey. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other touching stories like this one.